I am Phyllis Ryder. I'm the Executive Director of the University Writing Program, and I am very honored to welcome you here for this wonderful event, which has been entrusted to the University Writing Program. We held the first ceremony 9 years ago, so we're coming up on our 10th, and we hope you'll come back for the grand 10th celebration. And this event recognizes excellent research and writing and engagement with Washington, D.C. 2 years ago, we began with just the Research Prize, and 2 years ago, we extended it to the Creative Writing Prize and the Community Impact Prize, which has been delightful. I want to tell you a little bit about the person for whom this prize is named. So Julian Clement Chase. He graduated, he's a native of Washington. He graduated from what was then Woodrow Wilson, now Jackson Reed High School in Northeast. He served with the United States Marine Corps. And while he was in Helmand Province in Afghanistan, he was killed in action at the age of 22. And he was set to matriculate. It's me every time. He was set to matriculate as a freshman at GW in 2013. But Julian was born in Washington. He knew and relished this city. His family recognized this prize in his honor to recognize others who explored the city with the same intelligence and exuberance that he did. I want to invite you in the programs. Are there programs? Were there programs on your tables? Andy's going to pass out the programs. And in the programs, you'll see the intentions of the founders, which Belle and Owen wrote. And I invite you to read them. They really capture the spirit of this prize, the boldness, the curiosity, the intelligence, the connection, the community. And the intentions also remind us that this prize is forward-looking. So we tell Julian's story because his life is a model of deep commitment and passion. And we see how this model is carried forward by the insightful connections to our city that are embodied in all of the winners that you will hear today. So I love that element of it. And Andy, can we do that national anthem?
Yeah.
Okay.
Programs will be coming shortly.
Yes, we will pass the programs out.
I think I got left in.
Yes. Oh, okay. And Matt is here, right? So we will do a quick, do we want to rise? I think we should rise for the national anthem. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'm very honored to be here. Despite the very fancy sounding title, I was a glorified translator. We didn't work in cryptology, but we did work with Chinese linguistics, and part of that means coming to understand Chinese, not just language, but culture and history and the people. Um, and it's the people that build a language and build a community. And coming out of the army, I sought a place where I could feel a rich community and feel tapped into the cultural center I felt of the world, and a place where I could tap into the diplomacy of the US. And I was so grateful to find more than I ever hoped for at GW in DC. The Veteran Center and the Military Community Center has provided me with so many opportunities. They helped me set up my funding for school. They helped me get set up with a volleyball team and a run club. They dragged me kicking and screaming to file for veteran disability. They helped me get mental health coverage. And I've made so many friends and mentors, and I've met faculty who have helped me through so much through those resources. And I'm so glad to have been a part of that. Uh, Thank you for allowing me to come partake in this and be privy to the research going on here. Thank you.
Forgot to move the slide, sorry. At this point, I am pleased to turn the podium over to our ceremony host tonight, Ray Suarez. You probably have heard his voice. Ray Suarez is a well-known news anchor, correspondent, and commentator, serving long stints on NPR's Talk of the Nation, the PBS NewsHour, and KQED's On Shifting Ground. He's authored 4 books, including Latino Americans, the 500-Year Legacy That Shaped the Nation, The Old Neighborhood, What We Lost in the Great Suburban Migration, The Holy Vote, Politics of Faith in America, and his most recent book, We Are Home, Becoming American in the 21st Century, is a beautiful, wide-ranging oral history of the US's most recent generation of immigrants, and it has been praised for its remarkable investigative rigor and sensitivity, and as the work of someone who has long found poetry in ordinary people's words. Mr. Suarez's new PBS show, Wisdom Keepers: Healing a Divided People, explores connections between faith, science, and politics. As you can see, Mr. Suarez uses his voice and his pen to tell new stories, to inform people, and to bring people together around shared American values. And we are very pleased to have him host this 2025 Chase Prize. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. It's good to see you all. Every now and then, but with increasing frequency these days, it seems, some very smart person writes about the death of writing. Sometimes acknowledging the irony of doing that, and sometimes not, talking about this gizmo, talking about texting and email and jargon and attention span. And in separate pieces, in entirely separate pieces, other very smart people write about the death of reading, quoting very real and very disturbing stats about book sales and self-reported frequency of book reading, the difficulty professors have assigning students to read entire books during the course of a semester. You don't have to chuckle at that, in case that might bust you as to whether you're actually reading the books that you're assigned. Today is a day to remember to love words. And that makes today a day to hug close the Academy, which has been taking no small amount of incoming fire. The Academy that, at its best, continues to fly the flag for creativity and the truth, the value of facts and verifiability, because the only way we can have a real debate about what to do next in this sad old world is to stand on the solid ground of reality and wrestle about what works and what not too many people seem dead set on doing right now, frankly. They would rather shape a version of reality that advantages themselves, disadvantages their opponents, which allows them to debate not with the truth, but hope to win the debate through raw power. The digital age has pushed down the accelerator pedal on the degradation of a shared reality, making it possible to disseminate appealing lies far and wide. As a reporter, I increasingly found myself working for an audience that was having trouble trusting reporters and increasing trouble telling fact from fiction. We are in the midst, even if we don't realize it every moment, of a crisis in epistemology, a crisis of knowing how to know what the truth is. So while we're hugging the academy, save a hug for the writers who love what the written word can do to create impact, emotional resonance, and transmit vital information about our world, how we're to live in it with each other, how to create lives of coherence and sanity, yes, even in 2025. I used to view all this storm and tumult with a kind of arm's length skepticism. I just didn't want to believe things were as bad as they are. I used to say, don't worry, if you want the truth, you can find it. There will always be value placed on good writing. There will always be readers to write for, just as there will always be an academy. It will have to change, just as it has always changed since the first university was built around 1,000 years ago, but there will always be an academy. But suddenly, higher learning, with everything that phrase implies, is under unprecedented political threat, the kind of threat only possible in a society that's losing its reverence for, its love of the truth, of facts, and yes, of writing and reading. So, good thing we're all here tonight. Celebrating good work is never a bad idea. I was especially pleased to be asked to be with you today because the Julian Clement Chase Prizes honor specific categories of writing that don't get a lot of attention. Categories of writing that need encouragement. For instance, attention to this fascinating accident, the District of Columbia, a city like no other, a place sometimes hard to see clearly as a place where hundreds of thousands of people live and work and experience challenge and joy and suffering, 1,000,000 miles removed from the mudslinging and wrestling matches and the tsunami of cruel rhetoric about the city itself that flows from Capitol Hill. Apartments and corner stores and elementary school art classes and triumph and disappointment like that experienced anywhere else, or any real place, you might say. And yet different. I mean, my kids all grew up here. They all went to DC public schools. They think it's different. They think the people they meet now as adults don't understand the place, and they sort of value in a weird sort of, I've got calluses on the back of my knuckles sort of way that they grew up here. Nowadays, the city is caught between two stools, lectured and finger wagged about it being required forever to be a place unlike any other in America, set apart because it's the home of the national government, even as the current crop of boys and girls in charge want to move functions and responsibilities and jobs and tasks far away to other places. So, DC, be trapped in your constitutionally prescribed anomalous situation while we empty you out. That's where we're at right now. If I didn't know better, I think they were trying to crash the place on purpose. I leave that up to you. But as a card-carrying member of the reality-based community, it was easy to see how DC as symbol, DC as sign, as abstract, remained potent in the heads of our 335 million fellow Americans, while remaining only softly defined, dimly remembered from a senior class trip long ago to visit a hometown member of Congress on the Hill after a long bus ride or plane trip from somewhere else, a real place, from a real place to come visit here, to this place of gleaming marble landmarks. I never intended, frankly, to live here for 30 years. I never intended to have gray hair here or be a grandfather here, but as they say in my hometown, what are you going to do? The slashing away at the value of truth, of fact, of verifiability, teed up the city nicely for this moment in its history, when reality doesn't matter quite as much, when a leader only too happy to exaggerate the city's menace, its danger, its problems, found it useful to portray the place as one lawless hellscape, and to use that portrayal as a sign to the rest of the country, already hostile to the city, let's remember, to send heavily armed troops to our streets. There are places in this 61 square miles that do need help with law enforcement, that need jobs and municipal services and better schools. That's all true. The people in those neighborhoods will tell you that. And those are all things that would make those places less dangerous. But soldiers in fatigues with automatic weapons not only didn't bring those things to the neighborhoods that needed them, but hearkening back to DC as a symbol, where did they patrol? They patrolled the reflecting pool. They patrolled the mall, already the safest places in the entire region. And then, of course, take credit for their safety once they remain safe. That's why reality matters. I sat on a bench with my wife and daughter a few weeks ago and ate an ice cream cone and watched a dozen soldiers walk by with long guns, with automatic handguns on their hips, and I knew I was watching the triumph of symbolism over reality, the triumph of the power to shape reality for audiences far away. I finished my cone in complete security. But I am willing to stipulate that on that Sunday afternoon on the waterfront, I would have finished my cone safely even without those troops. Even if I had ordered rum raisin instead of chocolate chip. Long story short, we've got to get to the awards. The truth still matters, the academy still matters, and good writing will always matter. Thanks a lot. And now to the three Julian Clement Chase Prizes. For each prize, we will first ask the honorable mentions to stand as we celebrate their work. Then each winner will be introduced by their advisor or a member of the Chase Committee for that prize. Each winner will then tell you about their project in some detail. After all three winners, we will have some time for audience Q&A, so please, those of you who either are students or those of you who remember what it was like being a student, jot down your questions for after that part of the program is over. First up is the Chase Prize for Creative Writing in Washington. We have two. Oh, sorry.
Bill, can you Is Zoe in your Zoom, Bill? Message her and say, ask her to get on the other one. Okay.
Ta-da! First up is the Chase Prize for Creative Writing in Washington. We have 2 honorable mentions in this category. And stand if you're here in person. You don't have to stand. Jack Lanzer. No. Jack Lanzer, A Stolen Headstone, Looted Brains, and Governmental Mismanagement, The Tale of Mount Zion Cemetery, with faculty advisor Janet Steele, professor of Media and Public Affairs and International Affairs. And Nick Perkins, My 6 Months as an Anti-War Arlington Cemetery Tour Guide, with faculty advisor Lisa Page, assistant professor of English and director of creative writing. And now to introduce the creative writing winner is my old pal, Lisa Page, assistant professor of writing and the director of the creative writing program.
Thank you, Ray Suarez. And thank you, Belle. And thank you, Owen Clement, for founding this award. It's meant so much to our students. Also, a special shout out to Phyllis Ryder for her eye for detail, her sensitivity, and her relentless work ethic. Please. It's my honor to introduce the winner of the Julian Clement Chase Creative Writing in Washington Award. This award recognizes outstanding prose, fiction, or creative nonfiction given to a GW student for work that includes or incorporates the District of Columbia as backdrop, or for thematic purposes. Creative writing in and of itself is a special undertaking. It asks writers to mine gems through language and to illuminate the world. The artist Edgar Degas said, "Art is not what you see, but what you make others see." I thought of this as I read the winning short story, Ice Reflected by Zoe Carver. The story makes us see the district in an original and fresh way. It explores wintry DC, its monuments, its brutalist architecture, and the frozen tidal basin. It dissects the culture of the city itself, its transient nature, its federal workers, as well as its resilience and deceptive beauty. We learn Washington, D.C. has a secret identity, one that is tied to pleasure more than pain. Zoe Carver is a recent GW graduate, now living in Egypt. She is on fellowship at the American University in Cairo, thus the Zoom. I am so proud of her. She's part of the Presidential Associates Program, which allows her to work as a writer for the university and to report for its different publications. I was privileged to serve as her instructor, where I learned she is a special talent, one you'll hear more from in the future. Please welcome Zoe Carver.
A bit about my short story that I wrote, Ice Reflected. To start, I wanted to get into the setting of the piece. So I lived in DC the last 4 years. Obviously, I'm not there anymore, sadly. But when I first moved to DC, I was really enamored with the National Mall. I think probably the first month I was there, I was going once or twice a week, just walking down whenever I could. But slowly and surely, it sort of wore off the allure of it until I was going maybe once a month, and then only when I had a friend in town to visit, because the mall doesn't really change. It's the same thing over and over again. But this past January, there was a big ice storm, and the reflecting pool froze over. And for the first time since I've lived in DC, you could stand on the reflecting pool, and people were standing on the reflecting pool and posting videos. And it was really fascinating to me because this was a landmark that I'd become so familiar with suddenly changed in a way I didn't think it could be changed. So that's what inspired the setting for the story. And I will start with a small reading. On the water, there was a girl. In the middle of the reflecting pool, glazed over in a harsh sheet of muddy ice, there was a girl. It was morning and it was winter, a cool glacial dawn buried in mist and shrouded in distance. In the thick soup of the January fog, the Goliath white monuments appeared as gray shadows. The gold lead numbers on the city, thickening the ice of the reflecting pools so that it was at last hard enough to carry the weight of a girl right in the center. She was facing the Lincoln, head tilted up, eyes closed, an impossible sight. Her expression like history, impossible to ever truly know. I stopped suddenly, taking her in. Her hair was long and untied, her clothes alarmingly thin. The wind whipped around us both, my crewneck and joggers as frigid as if I was wearing nothing at all. I was mid-run, a cool and foolish choice I had made by the light of my alarm clock harshly ringing. I'd had a restlessness about me lately, an anger I couldn't quite manage. Running, wild, indignant, forceful running, seemed to be my only release. Normally, the loop around the reflecting pool was clogged full of sporty federal workers at 5 a.m., their arms toned, their clearances secret. Today was different. The vapid chill appeared to have scared off my colleagues, and in this bizarre leap of light, I ran alone. Alone, that is, apart from the girl in the water. So another big cornerstone of this piece is the idea of the people who live in DC, and that they might be transient, they might not be transient. And this was something that I was thinking about a lot as I was writing, because I was graduating, as you can see by these pictures. And I was having these conversations with friends of if we were going to stay in DC, if we were going to leave. Everyone was questioning this, where they would go next. In my circumstances, I ended up leaving, but I remember having a specific conversation with a really good friend of mine, and she was saying, I think I could do maybe one more year in DC, but I have to leave eventually. It's just too corporate here. And that really shocked me, because corporate DC was something that I heard many times, but mainly from the summer interns who came in here for a few months to work at the Hill or work at a consulting firm and then leave. Corporate DC was the sort of veneer of the city that people who hadn't cared enough or wanted to dig into the actual heart sort of said as a way to excuse themselves for not having dug into the heart in that way. And I thought that my friends, that the community that I had made had dug into that heart, that DC to us was the speakeasies in Eckington and the bookstores in DuPont and the parks in Calorama. We found that community in our time here, and that community was something that I still really cherish and hope to go back to. So that sort of heart of what is DC and what is it to you was another big thing I was thinking about while I was writing this piece. So I want to read you another excerpt. I like this jagged diamond, despite myself. Not in the way the hill staffers like the city, not because of its history and its majesty and its pomp and its circumstance. I like the city because it lived on despite all that. Those who thought DC was a land of commuters were the ones too scared to drive into the mess, into those back alleys with hidden jazz bars and the used bookstores that smelled faintly of vanilla. And the art, radiant art, it was a part of every circle. Museums hidden around every corner, every townhouse's facade, a secret masterpiece. Even those horrible, brutalist buildings, they were art too. This city was art, and it was alive in ways it liked to keep secret. The city stretched out beyond its heart, and those veins made of metro lines, oh, they circulated something sweet. Sorry, my Slides appear to be a little slow. But essentially, my advice to you is do what I now can't, as I no longer am in DC, and explore the city in whatever ways are possible for you. On my last day in DC, I went back down to the National Mall and spent a lot of time reflecting. I was a little odd because it was in August and it was the week that the National Guard had arrived. So once again, this area that I love was changed in ways I never thought to see it. But I spent a lot of time there just thinking about my experience, and I ended up writing another short piece that was just 10 lessons I'd learned throughout my time in the district, and I'd like to review the last 3. So number 8, people are nerds, learn to play board games at bars or die trying. Number 9, the monuments are beautiful and you will forget every 3 to 6 months. Go to the National Mall when it feels most unnatural and enjoy. And number 10, people are everything. They are power and they are love. They are politics and they are government, but they are also music and lifeguards and ice cream scoopers and your best friend and your next kiss. People are everywhere if you open your eyes to them. Whatever you do, keep those eyes open. So all that is to say that community is really what has made DC so powerful to me, and I would like to read you one last excerpt. But this girl, crowned by the tall point of Washington's obelisk, adorned by Lincoln's gaze, so gracefully reflecting monuments that can no longer be reflected in the ruddy sheen of ice, she made it art. Absurd, beautiful, bizarre art. Like all the scenes of the district, she changed the city in ways you couldn't see during normal business hours. She didn't come here for the tourists or the runners or even for the sake of art. She came here because it was cold and because she loved it. Maybe I would leave DC, maybe I would stay. The district had once felt like an untamable beast, but every day I moved closer to understanding. What was secret was beauty, what was art was obvious, what was stone was just ice reflected. So with all that, go explore the city and find all those places that make DC art to you. Thank you so much.
Next up is the Chase Prize for Research Writing on the District of Columbia. We have one honorable mention in this category. Please stand while we recognize your work. Tara Pilch-Bisson Self-Determination and Stewardship, Lessons for Radical Environmental Justice from Washington, D.C.'s Anti-Freeway Fight. Tara's advisor was Emily Bach, Assistant Professor of American Studies. And the research writing winner for the Chase Research Writing Prize will now be introduced by their advisor, Emily Bach, Assistant Professor of American Studies.
Thank you so much, and congratulations. I have, it's kind of overwhelming to have 2 students winning prizes, so I'm really proud of you both. So it's my distinct pleasure to introduce to you Bella Kumar, this year's winner of the Julian Clement Chase Prize for Research and Writing on the District of Columbia. In a moment, Bella will share a little bit about her project entitled Pedagogy and Praxis, a Movement, the New Thing Art and Architecture Center. So I won't actually say much about it here. What I will say is that in a moment when creative intellectual exchange, Black history, radical pedagogy, and education more broadly are under explicit attack, is a true gift to be reminded of the potential for transformation in and through their unfolding. In Bella's work, we find a historically and archivally rich exploration of an often overlooked moment in the 1960s Black arts movement in Washington, D.C. We see how Black Washingtonians resisted not simply the encroachment and expansion of white gentrification under the banner of urban renewal into the chocolate city, right? But also how community members invested in Black liberation, Black consciousness, Black social welfare, and Black flourishing, strategically used the state and federal funding to build artistic and educational hubs for community empowerment. As you'll learn in a moment, or later when you read this magnificent paper, the New Thing was not simply a space for play and learning in a traditional sense, though it was. It was also a space in which Black culture and artistic expression became a foundation to building a better and more just social world. As you may guess, when radical political movements assert themselves, especially when directed towards Black liberation, efforts are often met with pushback from those invested in maintaining the status quo. So this is not a story of our present or the new things present. Perhaps it was never meant to be, as Bella intimates at the end of the paper. But it is nonetheless a historical reminder of what it takes to try at building a world within the constraints that are not of our choosing. So please join me in welcoming and congratulating Bella Kumar.
Hi y'all. Nice to see y'all. My name is Bella. You'll have to excuse the word salad that's about to happen. I teach 10th grade English and I've been teaching all day, so it's gonna be a bit of a mess. Slides. As Dr. Bach put it much more eloquently than I'm about to, I wrote a paper called Pedagogy and Praxis, a Movement, the New Thing Art and Architecture Center. This was my senior thesis for the class that was about social movements. I was involved in some of them in college, to say the least. I will spare you the details of my disciplinary record, but I was heavily involved in organizing at GW. So there was a lot of things that I could have done. One of those little bites of organizing was the No Fossil Fuel Money campaign, which I'm feeling very grateful to be honored by the writing program, because the writing program is fossil free. Shout out writing program. But instead, if you will switch the slide for me. I chose to write about this place called the New Thing Art and Architecture Center, and to write about the Black arts movement for a couple of reasons. One of those reasons being that I was heavily involved in our campus makerspace, the GW Innovation Center, which is where I was able to find my true love of teaching people how to make things. And at the IC, I was able to figure out that this was actually a viable career path potentially, and that I would really love to be able to open a space like that. And I was also invited to an exhibition of photos of the New Thing by my partner's former SAT prep teacher, Mr. Mark Pinsker, who could not be here today. He's the assistant principal of Jackson Reed High School, which is where the archive of these photos was found. When we went to this exhibition, here's a couple of the photos here, I was shocked to find out that my idea was taken 60 years ago, that they had already pretty much done that, as good as it could have been. So I decided I would really dive into that and figure out how I could root my own future work in the work of the past. Thank you. Founded by Topper Karu, who was an absolute muse of mine. He was a Howard architecture student, then Yale architecture student, current PhD student at the MIT Media Lab. He's 82 years old. He tried to be here, couldn't make it. Absolute great guy, look him up. He founded this place called the New Thing Art and Architecture Center out of this tiny storefront in Adams Morgan on the corner of Florida and 18th. And it originated as his architecture office. He was one of the architects behind Marie Reed Elementary School. And so he was doing a lot of that work in this office. And then as he watched a lot of kids grow up in Adams Morgan, he noticed that there was a distinct lack of an arts education for them. So he opened the space. This is one of the flyers, and it says kind of the offerings on the side there. It also spells it out right here. But they basically taught art and dance at the very beginning. And then in 1972, or by 1972, they were able to accumulate a pretty significant amount of federal funding to teach Black kids how to dance and how to draw and how to shoot movies and how to take pictures and do a bunch of the things that the government was actually largely trying to suppress at that moment. By 1972, they grew to educate over 200 students with that money. And so for a little bit of context about what I was talking about, regarding the government subjugating that effort. At this time, in the late 60s, it's 1967 to 1972, which is the time period of the New Thing. There was a sort of war between the white hegemony, the white government of DC, and Black DC. The government was trying to redevelop DC, meaning gentrify, and the local residents were fighting back, among them being Topper. He's in the corner right there. They formed the Adams Morgan Better Neighborhood Commission, trying to create projects that they could use to push back against the gentrification of DC. And one of my main questions when examining their project was, how did they do it pedagogically? My dream is to make an art space. What am I missing? What do I need to do? How did they do it? Because they pulled it off. They really did. They did a really awesome job. And so I'll spare you the details. The details are very robust, but one of the most awesome things that I found was that they hired significant local Black artists, including Lou Stovall, Lloyd McNeil, these really big name Black artists that Topper went to Howard with, to teach the high school students. And then those high school students then taught the younger students. And so he calls this the art master apprentice model, this kind of trickle down model of education. That's really interesting to me. But then if you'll switch the slide for me. One of the main concerns of my paper and of my career at GW was with blood money. And I'm identifying blood money to be money provided to them by the government, because as we talked about, the government is actively invested in the suppression of Black life and the suppression of Black power, because this is also a moment where Black power is arising. And they accepted and used thousands and thousands of dollars of this government money. So question being, can we make something beautiful out of something violent? Which is to say, how did they manage to use funds from an institution determined to extinguish Black power to make Black art that built Black power? And the how is really too much to detail here, but my answer essentially to this question ended up being yes. And after fighting that notion that violent money was worth taking for a long time, I was shocked that I would decide that it would in fact be yes. But I think they did a very particular thing at the New Thing, which was to accept government money kind of under the premise of cleaning up the streets and getting Black youth off the streets, when in fact they were educating them to get back onto the streets and be unavoidable, have Black culture be truly unavoidable in DC in a moment where it was really trying to be erased. So in this moment, in this case, I really do think that they made something beautiful out of something violent. They ended up educating an entire generation of Black artists, musicians, filmmakers, and educators who did effectively challenge white cultural hegemony in DC, so much so that they have put together an exhibition of photographs of the space. There's a highlight of the space in the Bold and Beautiful Vision exhibit at the Anacostia Community Museum, which you should totally go see. And Karu is now living on, still talking to the people who went to the New Thing, the students of his school who are now educators themselves. And anyway, all this to say, they did something really amazing. I'm very honored to be able to study that. And a couple takeaways for me was that in DC, the answer is always in the room. The fact that I was 1 degree of separation from the guy who literally did the thing that I wanted to do with my life is so DC. The fact that Mr. Minsker, come on, that guy, he's just he has a radio show and he just knows this super sick dude. That's so DC to me. And so that's very special. Also, every idea you have, someone has probably already had. And in order to be a good organizer, I think it's your job to look into what those histories are. I also learned that DC elders and youth are able to show us what's possible in the margins of citizenship. I am so inspired by the resilience of my students who are being harassed, attacked, apprehended, jailed, the like by the police and by the National Guard. And they show up to school every day. And even though me asking them to write 3 sentences is like I'm asking them to eat their own hand, oftentimes they do it. And that's a really big deal. And that is the kind of work that I'm trying to emulate that I think that Topper really built in the New Thing. So those are a couple things about the things I love about DC. And it was really a joy to write this. Well, no, that's not true, actually. It was not a joy to write this paper. I hated the whole process. However, I loved learning about DC. And I feel like writing this paper was really a very interesting way for me to figure out that this was really, that I think, the city for me. That there was a true radical history here that is worth building upon, that, and it's a place that I would like to stay. That's all I have.
It turns out that it's okay to admit when you're getting a writing award that the reporting is more fun than the writing, as it turns out. Finally, we have the Chase Prize for Community Impact in the District of Columbia. We have one honorable mention in this category, Brooke Moses, the STEM Field Day at Life Pieces to Masterpieces. The community impact winner will be introduced by Amy Cohen, Assistant Vice Provost and Executive Director for GW's Nashman Center for Civic Engagement and Public Service.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Belle and Owen. It's such a pleasure to be here and to have been involved with the prize for so long and to be able to do this Community Impact Prize. The Nashman Center is a little bit different. First of all, this isn't a writing prize. It is a prize that's about reflection and thinking. Ray, you talked about reality when we came in today, and I really feel like the Nashman Center, by bringing students to work closely with communities in the District of Columbia, to bring their academic, their civic, their personal lives to bear on those, are about the creation of shared reality. And so, you work together for something that's larger than yourself. Both Ruby and Brooke have done this amazingly. You build teams, you build face-to-face neighborly relationships. And you reflect. You cannot but understand reality, and you cannot look away from what is happening through this work. So I'm very excited to be able to introduce Ruby, who has done this work extraordinarily. She's been involved in many different Nashman Center programs. Right now, she is a leader for Smart DC for Love of Children, or FLOC, where she is supporting student tutors who are tutoring in literacy. And the project that she works on is with the Latin American Youth Center, and she'll tell you all about that. I also want to say Lindsay Chudzik, who is her mentor and advisor, as well as Brooke's mentor and advisor in this program. And I really want to thank Lindsay for all that she is doing and does. So without further ado, Ruby.
Okay, good evening. Yes, my name is Ruby Leonard, and I'm going to be talking to you guys today about my project Sustainable Sewing Practices. So a little bit about me. I am currently a junior getting my Bachelor of Arts in Human Services and Social Justice, which is one of our sociology programs at GW. As Amy said, I've been with Nashman since I've come to GW, and it's really been my path to going from someone who just visited DC many years ago on a middle school field trip to working in the community, serving with the community, and really falling in love with its history and its people. But as you can see, I most love sewing, I think. I picked it up as a COVID hobby 5 years ago, and thankfully it stuck. It is how I can best channel my stress, my creativity, my passion into something artistic and usually wearable, usually. But from the NAACP Legal Defense Fund in 2020 to Gaza Soup Kitchen this coming Sunday, selling my art has been a way for me to raise money for organizations that fight for issues most important to me. And my project was actually inspired by one of GW Upstart's grants, the Eco Equity Challenge. I saw the words social and environmental justice coming together, and just something immediately clicked last fall. I knew that my love of sewing could directly counter the issues of overconsumption and environmental degradation, and finally make a positive change that I could see in my own community directly. Slides. While I was writing the application for the grant, I dug into the research of the human and environmental impacts of the fashion industry. Facts like 900 days of drinking water go into a single cotton t-shirt, or the average piece of clothing is now roughly worn maybe 3-5 times before disposal. These facts can feel very overwhelming, crushing, disheartening, and but I knew that I had to focus my project on DC here, look at how communities and how youth interact with clothing here, and what could I do as someone who's not from DC, someone from Maine, actually. Next one. With my Eco Equity grant, I felt like I could inspire and equip other youth with the skills and knowledge not only to buy better, but to take old clothes they didn't want anymore and add value or upcycle them into something exciting and representative of who they were. And I partnered with the phenomenal Latin American Youth Center in Columbia Heights, where students go to hang out after school or attend free art and leadership classes to earn their mandatory community service hours. I started one such class last spring. I bought all the sewing machines and supplies, borrowed some supplies from Bella at the Innovation Center, begged for donated fabric and clothes, and then I ended up working with 7 high school students throughout the semester on completing a pincushion, a tote bag, and a final project of their choosing, all out of recycled materials. We opened each class with a discussion and deep dive of some aspect of the fashion industry, and then practiced our basic stitching and applique skills like one student did here with the DC flag, which was amazing. With my grant, I was also able to bring in the incredible DC fashion designer, Sarita Herbert, for a guest lecture where she could share with the kids her experiences in sustainable fashion and offer advice on their projects. With the pre and post tests, I was able to see that, yes, the students did listen to me a little bit about sustainability and fashion throughout those 10 classes. They even committed to shopping secondhand more, and they have access to sewing machines in LAYC now for further use. So students wrote their own artist statements and hosted an incredible exhibit in LAYC all about what they created and also learned from the class. I loved seeing their growth as none of them had sewn before, and they all were able to walk away with something they were really proud of. I was also able to create gift bags for them so they can continue their sustainable fashion journeys, and launched a free clothing rack at LAYC from the clothing donation collection centers at GW. So I had many awkward trips on the metro with bags that were larger than I am, but the kids loved it. Yeah, next one. So looking forward, I look forward to continuing the clothing swap. It's been really fun. I was also awarded the Luther Rice undergraduate research grant to teach the class again this semester and evaluate how effective it is in like a more thorough way. And this project has just been a complete whirlwind, but I will continue to look for ways to keep it funded or hopefully expand access to sewing machines in DC into further projects. Like Bella, that's an amazing, amazing project. Okay, this one. And this project would definitely not have been possible without the enthusiastic help I got from DC and GW alike. Marie Mall and Leanna Zaragoza stayed late a countless number of times, listening to me ramble about new ideas, teaching strategies. Katrina Orsini helped get really cool like raw plant fibers and even silkworm pods for the students to touch, which was really fun. Elle Ellington and Yasmin Manejo were my rocks to help when something would go wrong on every machine every 30 seconds. Elle is actually teaching the class right now as we speak. So I'm confident that come 6 p.m., all kids will still have all parts of their fingers. So I just thank you to her. And then Sarita, of course, we're gonna have her back in November, which is really exciting. Iman and Juliana, Iman's back there, from Nashman and the Office of Sustainability helped my project find its legs, and I am so grateful to them. And I just want to say thank you so much to the Clements family for starting this award. It's meant a lot, and the JCC committee for your faith in my idea. And I cannot wait to see where the work takes me next. So thank you.
It's now time for audience Q&A. So Belle, Ruby, and from Cairo. Are we going back to Cairo? Okay.
Oh, so we, yeah, so Becca.
I'm gonna. You share this one,
Okay.
Come on, dude.
and then I've got.
So all during our presentations, you've been thinking of your fabulous questions. Am I right? Am I right?
Yes.
And we'll have questions coming in online, Phil? Questions?
Good friends. They went to Howard together.
If you Sound of my voice in Cairo, Egypt. If you could come back up, we'd appreciate that a lot. Surprises. Every scholar goes into a project with expectations. It can't be 100% surprise. What did catch you unawares, shocked you, thrilled you?
Um, I think initially I really had wanted to do the projects teaching people of all ages. I think it would have been really fun to just like have it be like a really free community resource. But in difficulties with like finding a space to do that, partnering with the like local DC government, it ended up being I had to use the connections I had at Nashman and work with their longstanding community partner, the Helmand Center. But it honestly ended up, I mean, the amount of support I had there, so it was definitely a happy accident.
I think a shock for me was my ability to get this paper done. It was touch and go there. But yeah, I mean, I had so much support. I mean, my family, my friends, all of my roommates, Dr. Bach, Dr. Wortham, my saints who read it 500 million times when I was at work at the Innovation Center. Thank you so much. Yeah, to get it done in a semester is really difficult. I think the other thing I was shocked about was really how much ephemera was in the archive. There was so much this, right, that actually provided me with a lot of really deep information and the ability to like derive like some very interesting conclusions. Another shock was that I was able to talk and like meet and become good close friends with Hopper. This guy is like, this is my Taylor Swift. Hopper's my Taylor Swift, and my ability to be in touch with him has changed my life. He's incredible.
Give an update that it is after midnight in Egypt, so Zoe has.
Besides that primary one, were there other people who were around during the founding of the organization that you could tap into?
Yeah, I mean, there's so actually, I mean, many of the people that were involved with the organization have passed. Topper he's 82 years old. People involved included Lou Stovall, who's passed, Lloyd McNeil, Melvin Deal, Betty Garman, many folks, a lot of people that were involved in the Addisbury and Better Neighborhood Commission. Also, lots of folks who were local educators and wanted to come support their students after school. Could I have tapped into them? Potentially. The only reason that I was able to talk to Topper at all was through Mr. Minsker, because he had put together this, or helped put together this exhibition. The other people who are alive that are accessible are Tom Zetterstrom and Joel Jacobson, my photographers. I was not able to get interviews with them. I did apply for a DC Humanities grant to do an oral history. There are some oral histories with Lou Stovall and Lloyd McNeil and Melvin Deal about the new thing in this project, and I relied on those oral histories a lot when writing this. I think if I had more time, I would have loved to fight harder to get in touch with them, but there's still people around, but unfortunately many have passed.
Ruby, I was interested in your point that you would have liked to have made it a multi-generational thing, because it occurs to me that the parents of a lot of the kids who would use LAYC have sewing skills. It's very deeply entrenched in their home country cultures. Be nice to have. Is there any way to revisit that, to tweak the design, to pull in some mamas into the next, some people who've sewn their own huipiles to get them to work with the class?
That would be incredible, and I think the exciting thing is I get to teach this class again, and I could bring in more. I'd love to bring in more DC community members to just kind of offer their thoughts to the kids. That would be great. I think also just about what you're saying about the multi-generational teaching model, or just like artists teaching high schoolers teaching kids, I think would be amazing. And we've talked about this, but like putting together a space that's basically the Innovation Center at GW, but accessible to everybody would just be like a dream. So it's cool how our projects have kind of come together on that.
Questions?
So I applied for that grant, didn't get it. However, I did get a personal email from the DC Humanities chair of that grant saying that he wanted to make it happen. So I'm working on that. Again, Chopper has been a very elusive figure in the oral history space. He's like a huge player in the DC civil rights movement and also in the Black arts movement. And we have not been able to get oral history from him. In fact, I was told by the guy who leads the art space oral history project here at the People's Archive that I've been the first person to talk to him in 7 years. So it was actually kind of a miracle that he answered my email. It wasn't a miracle, it was Mr. Munster, actually. But the answer is I would absolutely love to. I am a full-time 10th grade English teacher, so that's pulling a lot of my time right now. But yes, I did put my, through my paper in the running for the Washington History Magazine, which has unfortunately been hit really badly by some funding polls. But absolutely, if you have any ideas of where it should go, let me know.
I don't think I need the mic. Congratulations.
If we could, just so that we can get it onto the Zoom.
Congratulations to both of you. I was lucky I had Bella in narrative journalism a few years ago. Your project is really interesting. Both of your projects are great. I'm a historian, so I'm really interested in the new thing. Was it related, or how did it relate to the DC riots in 1968?
So it's funny that you should ask that. So there's a really good quote from Topper in one of the it's all coming back to me. I thought it was really there's a really great quote from him in a piece that was written in the Washington Post in 1968, basically saying like, we are getting Black kids off the street and keeping them from participating in those things. Let's set the record straight that Topper is a Black Power activist, right? He's playing the media so that he can keep getting the funding, and this is what makes him kind of a genius. So the new thing was playing on that tension very directly. They were aware of that contradiction, and they were playing on that contradiction strategically to continue their project, which is one of the things that I do talk about in my paper, and something that I think is very genius. I'll leave it there. Yeah.
Did I see another hand? Yes.
The archive was not available for my project. They had this so the Anacostia Community Museum had just acquired the materials, and they were not processed. They did not want me to have them. I mean, my good friends with Samir, the exhibition coordinator at the Anacostia Museum, and then also great friends at the library here. People want you to tell their stories. So asking really nicely was really helpful, and harassing via email was really helpful for my research project in which the archive is not available.
I would say I was entirely new to teaching, starting the project, and I remember coming up with like a really detailed lesson plan for the very first workshop, and I don't think I got through a quarter of it. I remember calling my mom, actually, she's right there, and just being like in tears, like, oh, I'm terrible at this. I need to like, I don't know, I need to stop the project or something. And she's like, first pancake. So, and it was. And I think you just, I think you just have to trust that even if you're really new to something, you will gain those skills, you will get better. And the kids were really nice to me. They were very nice to me like throughout it. So that was definitely something that kept me going.
Well, did you feel like you had a better handle on it by the end?
I did, definitely. And also just the amazing, like seasoned community workers and youth workers at LAYC. Like one of them, Leanna, actually told me she's like, okay, whatever you created, your lesson plan, just cut it in half and just go from there. And that works, it serves me very well.
I have a question for Ruby also that kind of follows up with that. When I was a professor, one of the things I loved most was how much my courses would change from semester to semester, even if it was the same class. Because the world's constantly changing, students are changing, I'm learning as much from them as they're learning from me. So my question for you is, now that you've taught the course once, what's one thing that you might change about it based on what you've learned from your students?
I think definitely with time management, especially because it's a weirder schedule, less classes this fall, just kind of making the projects, dedicating more time to the sewing because I did get carried away with the sustainability. I got really passionate about it and they're like sitting there for half an hour. I'm like, okay. So this time, so I think this fall, I really want to make sure they spend just more time on the machine. And actually we're going to be doing, last year we did like a tote bag, an individual tote bag as like an intermediary project. And this fall I'm going to be doing a community quilt with the whole class. So they're going to be each contributing a square, which I think will just be an exciting thing and a really fun way to like show off the class and the differences of the students.
Something else may have occurred to you. You can ask Ruby and Belle across the hall. Thanks for all your wonderful questions. And now I'd like to return the ceremony back to where it began with Phyllis Ryder to close us out and the presentation of the certificate, so don't go away.
Thank you. A few things I wanted to say before we move on to presenting the certificates and the awards. One, Humanities DC is one of our co-sponsors, and the executive director was our speaker last year. So I loved hearing about that, and maybe we can talk more about the grant. Second is that the full text of all the winning prizes are on the GW Scholar Space. So if you want to see them, you can go directly to Scholar Space. We also have links from the Julian Clement Chase page at the University Writing Program, which is writing program at .gw.edu. So you can have those links and really sink your teeth into them.
You can also.
See, Andy has QR codes for you, so you can get it even more easily. And finally, if you are a UW student who wants to make sure your professor knows that you came, there's a sign-up sheet over here that you can sign into. But mostly I want to say thank you. Thank you to Ray. Thank you to everybody. Thank you for your excellent presentations. And I will send a special thank you to Zoe. May she have sweet dreams. I thought these were excellent presentations, really thought-provoking discussions. I loved, like, in the same way that each class is very different, like this ceremony feels very different each year. And I feel like I learn so much every time. So I would like to ask Ray if you could come up front. And if I could, you go back to your seats and I'll call you up one at a time. And Belle and Owen, if you could come forward. And I think we will try to do it in front of the chairs. So we'll do that seat. Yes. Okay. We'll have to pause in that very special pausey way. Okay. So first we would like to invite up Tara Pilch-Bisson. Hold it up so everybody can see it. Thank you. And now for the winning prize for the research writing in the District of Columbia, if we can have Bella come back up. Thank you. Now an honorable mention for creative writing in Washington, D.C. Jack. And Brooke Moses, honorable mention for community impact. I'm on the board of Life Pieces to Masterpieces, so this is especially meaningful to me. And last but not least, Ruby Leonard. And if we could have all of the people who just got their awards to come all back up. One last one. Oh, prize chair, sure. No, well, Matt, do you want to give us direction for how we should be standing?
Yes, I'm going to shoot some squares.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not proud. That work? Okay. So we do have a reception across the hall. So we'd like to invite you to come on across and enjoy the food and beverages, and please